Well, here we are again. We've finished our work in the book, but today we're reviewing. We're looking back at what we have done. And I thought it a good idea to bring the very paper that we began with when I was introducing the course. And some of you will recognize it here, where we said that listening is a prime skill in language learning. Some of you were with me last Thursday evening for the live session, and I talked about it at that time as well. Prime meaning first. It's the first thing we do with a language. We listen. Then we speak. Then we learn to read. And then we learn to write. So really, listening is a prime skill. Now, during these many weeks, we have been doing extensive activities and intensive activities. When I presented this at the beginning of the course, for many of you that may have seemed rather abstract and not very clear. But now, I think you know what it means. You've done the 2 homework exercises, or if you haven't, you're in the process of doing so, and you'll see that the first exercise was extensive. You remember the first homework exercise where you had a passage about journeying to the beach? Well, you remember you listened to that, and then you had 10 questions to see how well you understood. Now, I encouraged you to take notes on that passage, and I hope you did, and I hope you will do so also on the final exam when you have a different passage. But that is an extensive activity. Then we had a number of intensive activities, most importantly regarding close work. Remember that in every unit, we would have at the beginning of the unit a conversation, and then we would look at the text of the conversation with certain parts missing. Such an exercise is a close exercise. You had some close exercises on your homework exercise number 2. We had another one, which is intensive, which was called reductions, where you hear a reduced form like, how are you doing? How are you? And you have to, that how are you means how are you? Huh? So recognizing equivalence between a reduced form and a full form of speech. So these were various intensive activities that we did. So every unit, you remember, we had the introduction to the topic. Then we had a conversation with content questions, close work, reductions, and sometimes pronunciation. We had 3 major pronunciation areas: final S, which can be realized as S, Z, or is. We had also with can't and can. And we had with the final ed ending, which marks the past and the past participle of regular verbs. And we said there it could be realized as d, t, or id, again depending on the final sound of the base form. Okay? So some of these things came up again last Thursday night, so some of this may be a repetition for some of you. Then we would always move to the second part of the unit, where you had a presentation. I would say a passage. Huh? Let's review some of the passages we had. In Unit 1, we had the passage which was an introduction to the Language Center. You remember that? In Unit 2, we had a story about some campers who were put in a bad position by some naughty bears, some bears who took their clothes from them. And the third, we had a lecture about healthy eating. In number 4, that was about community. I'm trying to remember what was in number 4. Let me have a look here. Maybe you remember. Let me have a look here and see what that was in Unit 4. We had always a passage in Unit 4. It was in the community, but what was our presentation? Oh, yes, I remember. We were comparing life in a village with life in the city. Then Unit 5, we were in the home, and we were looking around an apartment, a possible apartment to rent. And finally, our last unit, Unit 6, Customs of the World, we heard of ceremonies in different cultures of the world. So we had a range of different passages or presentations. Some of these were practiced, in class. All of them were practiced in class. And we had vocabulary, and we also had content work. So that was another area in each of the 6 units. Then we went on to contexts. We will have contexts on the final exam. I will talk about the final exam in more detail in the final lecture, but today I'd like to review the material that we have been doing over these many weeks. And context will be included. You remember the context where we would have a conversation and you would listen to it, and from listening you should be able to answer the question about it. Now we also had some tasks. Tasks are very difficult to test on an exam such as we had, so I'm not including tasks on the final exam. They were very useful for practice, but they will not be included, so that's a little tip for you. All right, so that's what we talked about at the very beginning of the course. I think it makes more sense to you now. I hope so. You remember I also showed this sheet to you, and of course now it makes a lot more sense. We had an introduction, the course, what we're doing in English 210. You know that now. The teacher, I think you know me now. And the syllabus, telling you what materials you needed and what you needed to do. I'm happy to say that it seems people are not having, I should say people, I mean my students, you are the people involved here, that you were able to get the book, or at least you were able to deal with the materials, because after the first few weeks I didn't have any more inquiries about that problem. So it seems you were able to solve that, and I'm very happy to hear about that. Now, I spent some time at the beginning of the course, manner of testing, but we'll come to that in more detail in the next lecture, because the next lecture is our final lecture, and then we're talking about your final exam and what you need to know and what you need to do on the final exam. Now, I thought, as I said today, we're reviewing the material that we've gone through over these many weeks, and so it may interest you to have a look at some of these things we did some time ago. They will bring back memories, I'm sure, and so we'll have a look at what we were doing some time ago. In Unit 1, you probably remember our conversation. The conversation here between Jack and Peter in the lobby of their building. You probably remember that, and that was the introduction to the question about moving into the place, about taking Chinese. It was about introduction at the beginning of the semester. And you probably remember we did some close work there. I'm sure that by now you're used to this type of close work. This should seem quite easy to you. Words like campus, moved into, meet you, sounds. You may have something like this on the final. You have to supply what was missing. All of this should seem so familiar to you. Isn't it nice to see these things that once looked so strange and now they seem so easy? Here are some of the reductions we did in that first unit. Okay. Now, for example, you would hear, how are you feeling? Of course, you're going to choose among A, B, C, D, E. You would choose, how are you? How are you? How are you feeling? See ya in an hour. See ya is see you. Do you want to eat? Do you want to eat? That's going to be, do you want to? I guess the to is not clear there. Let me move it over a little so you see the full form. Do you want to? When do you have to meet? When do you have to? Have to is do you have to. So reductions, as you know, are a fair part of the exam. So these are things that we did. Here, reminding you of our pronunciation exercise. The final S ending, realized in different ways, may be clearer to you. I again explained this last Thursday night because someone asked about that. I hope you're aware we're not talking about letters, we're talking about sounds. Because you look at all those forms, we see the same letter, S. But it is not the same sound. Because the sound is an ending, it's a marker. It depends on the ending of the base form. So miss ends in a sibilant. We call it sh, sibilants. So it's misses. And you see the is marked there. Hopes, p, s, p is unvoiced, s. So we have an unvoiced marker. So notice the middle column is marked for s. It's the unvoiced form. Stops, same. Drives, however, is a v is voiced. We have a z at the end. Phones, all the nasals. Nasals, for those of you who know linguistics, n, m, ng are the nasal sounds, and they are always voiced. So always after it would be rings or rams or phones, always a z at the end. Washes, one of our sibilants, so is, washes. Summarizes is again a sibilant, so is. Mothers, is considered to be voiced, the retroflex, r. So always after a retroflex, if it would be furs or hers or theirs, always a z. And finally, puts, as one of our pronunciation, something you should be able to distinguish. So this was all in the first unit, and we moved on then. I'm going to remove these now. We move on to the second part. That was our second lecture, was about the school orientation. School orientation, Can you see that? Some of our vocabulary: advisor, schedule, facilities, orientation, placement test. And in the actual presentation, we heard about the different things that were happening. And we had here the picture to guide us here. Here's the advisor giving the presentation. And this was our outline. If you're taking notes on it, you'd probably try to get these facts down. Reading, grammar, composition, listening. 3 hours. Orientation, small groups. Info means information. Where get books. Types of classes. Campus tour, afternoon. Buildings, facilities, libraries. So this is getting information down. Example of our first listening passage in this book. We had contexts, and I could read them now, but I'm sure you remember the first one where they were talking about whether they wanted a large, whether they wanted pepperonis and peppers and hungry. From that, we were able to deduce that in this case it was a pizza restaurant. Excuse me. Then the next one we heard about a class. The professor was sick. A TA came in place. Since it came in place, who is a TA? A teaching assistant. In the next one, unusual, says he's unusual, surprised, not like where I come from. So what is Kenji's view about the place? It's different from Japan. Not that it's terrible, it's not similar, but it was different. In the fourth one, we heard about making a reservation, leaving ID number, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. So what are they going to do? Telephone between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. to make the reservation for the tennis match. And so we heard want to play, class till 2, meet 2:30. So what are they going to do the next day? Play tennis together. So you're using those clues in the context to choose the correct answer. And that you'll be doing some of these on the final, and we'll talk about that in more detail later. The next page was about body language. Okay, can't really test you on that, but it's something interesting to know about. Information, task, something we're not going to be doing the task, but I hope you enjoyed the practice. It was very good for you to be taking down notes. Notes are what you're going to be taking down also when you're listening to the passage on the final exam. That was our first unit. Then we moved to the second unit, which was about nature. Remember the beautiful quotation, "In every walk with nature, one receives far more than he seeks." Nature, beauties of nature. Well, we had a nice picture of these, of the beauties of nature, and we see the gentleman hiking, one of our key terms in this unit. In introduction to our conversation, we saw these two gentlemen, Jack and Peter, dreaming. If you look there, you see their dreams. One is dreaming of snorkeling, the other dreaming of lying in the sun. Different people, different dreams. And of course, in our presentation, the one that we hear about, we have a number of vocabulary terms we practiced: chance of, degrees, weather forecast, to get a tan, extra, freezing, sick of, how come, it's raining, cats and dogs. So those are all vocabulary that might be included. And we had our conversation here where they talk about their ideas of going on holiday. Some words you should note: beach, October, the month, swimming, they're planning, it's freezing, they want to ski, fell down. And finally, the end of this, any place, degrees, weather, borrow, you can borrow mine. So some useful vocabulary for you. And then we had another example of reduced forms. Here what we did, you heard the reduced form and you had to supply the correct form. Well, on the exam you won't be writing, but you will be choosing. So if you hear, do you wanna come? You would choose, do you want to? What are you gonna do there? Gonna do? What are you going to do there? Well, it's a nice day. We can swim and lie. Can swim and lie. Can swim and lie would be can swim and lie. Full forms. Continuing with some more on the next page. Thanks, but I don't wanna. I don't wanna go. I don't wanna go. Don't wanna go is I don't want to go. Okay. Okay, here we are back in business. Okay. How about you? How about you? How about you, Peter? That's really not reduced very much. Next one, I can't, I've gotta, that's very reduced, gotta, meaning I've got to stay at home and study, and would be and study. So reduced forms, making you conscious of the continuous speech. Here our form, our pronunciation exercise had to do with the modal can, the modal of ability. And we said that if it's stressed, indicates negative. So, he can't go to town with me. You can see me if you like. Number 3, he can do it, can do it. Number 4, she can't be reached today, Can't be. She can be, can't be. So the stress indicates negative or positive in this case, talking about ability. And then we had organizer here about taking notes. Now, if you had a passage like this where they're saying comparing two things, when you take notes, it's good to put one thing on one side, one on the other. In our book, it was comparing village life and city life. Now, maybe you'd have a listening passage comparing living in Saudi Arabia and living in Europe. So you would have the same tactics, same vocabulary probably about friendliness and noise and stress and things like that. So that was what we were practicing. We had some previewing vocabulary here at the bottom. The view at the top of the mountain, incredible, muddy, hiking, clear, couldn't wait, scared, some of our vocabulary. And then here's our story about the unexpected visitor. Not very clear in this picture, but you remember, you've seen it in your book, or when I showed you, I had a different picture of it somewhere. Maybe I have it here. Let me see if I have it later. I'd like to show you correctly. Well, I don't seem to have it here. But anyway, it's a picture of the bears. I remember the bears in the story there. And here were some of the notes on what was in the passage. Going camping, weather sunny, clear, half hour, started to rain, cats and dogs, hike back to tent, change clothes. So again, this is similar to your homework assignment, going to the beach. And on the next page, we again see some people hiking, and some of our vocabulary, again, hiking, clear, incredible, muddy, scared, I can't wait to. Okay. One of our contexts here, this is a different kind of context, where you had to choose the season, and we said that up on the left we would choose for that one, we'd of course say that that is spring, and beside it on the right is summer. I've even written it there for you. My gosh, I've been so nice. And look at that. And fall and winter. And then we had some contexts about these seasons. And somebody said it's very cold, the leaves are brown, it's raining. So we would say it's fall. Someone says it's freezing, low 30s. Now remember, low 30s in the English system, Fahrenheit, is just about freezing. Freezing is 32 degrees in the English system, so that's very cold. Freezing, so it's winter. In the next one, number 3, about the trees and the flowers, the leaves coming back, the snow gone, must be spring. We heard about the next one, about hot, humidity, air conditioning, doing nothing. I'm sorry, that's the next one. And so that's summer. The next one was also summer, doing nothing, your back is getting red, you're sunburned. So that would be summer. A pronunciation task that we had at the end of this unit was about tens and teens, 95, 80, 30s, 40, 103, 30, 13. So hearing the difference between teens and tens. And then our task here was filling in the weather forecast. Okay, you heard about these different 61 degrees and in the 60s and 70 degrees. So those are things you needed to do. So that was our second unit. Well, the third unit, I hope you're not watching this at a time when you're hungry, because it's about living to eat or eating to live. In our conversation, we shopped for food. And then we have advice about healthy eating, and then we have different kinds of restaurants and following recipes. Our introductory picture was a happy one, a family, together, eating together, happy family. Another food-orientated situation, and that was our conversation, Nancy and her husband shopping. And you see them there with their grocery cart, and looking up at the sign, Express, they're in the express lane, which they shouldn't be, because I assure you see they have much more than 10 items. Our vocabulary here in this unit, aisle, remember that, A-I-S-L-E, strange spelling, it's a French spelling, silent S, aisle. Groceries, pound, here not the pound that you use for money, but the pound of weight. A pound is about half a kilo, 454 grams, so something we're used to in English. Produce, notice this pronunciation, not produce is the verb, but the noun produce, referring to fruits and vegetables at the grocery. And quart, a measure of volume. Volume means how much it contains. In the metric system, the liter is the basic unit of volume. And then we have that food called tofu. Tofu because we have some Asian connections in this book, and tofu is a popular food in Japan, China, and this area, very healthy, made from soya beans. Our verb was a phrasal one, to take checks. Some stores take checks. It means they accept. You can pay with a check, so they take checks. An expression, in line. Okay, you have to wait in line at the grocery. And here is our close exercise, the conversation. Be careful of negatives. For example, aren't on the list. Aren't, not are on the list. Aren't. Here the negative, the t in there, aren't. Army, always. Strawberries, R-R-I-E-S. You won't have to write it, but you must hear that it's a plural and know how it should be spelled. Be careful of also these prices, $1.79, $2.60. We have a full stop, and then after that the number of cents. And tofu, forgot, expensive. Again, another price, $3.99, quart, express, checks. Words we have seen before. Let's look at our reductions in this unit. Do you know what you want? Do you have? Becomes do you have? Okay. Yes, we do. Well, are the mushrooms fresh or canned? They're fresh, and the sauce has lots of them. Lots of them. Lotsa. Lotsa is lots of. Great, I'll have that. Do you want something to drink? Do you? Do you is do you? I don't know. I don't know. Dunno is don't know. Why don't you recommend? Why don't you? Ya is you, huh? Why don't you? Again, we come back to the same pronunciation item about tens and teens. 30, 14, 15, 60, 70, 18, 90. You should be able to distinguish them. And then we had our task here where we were, you were given cues using 15 and 30 and filling it in. So all of that had to do regarding that question. Then we moved in our next lecture to the second part of the unit about healthy eating. Healthy eating, some of our vocabulary here, source, vitamins, minerals, gain weight, skip breakfast, tooth decay, cut down on, means to use less, calories, I think that was in your homework, wasn't it? Fiber, some words have to do with eating. And we had another look at them in this exercise, but I'm going to move right on to the notes that were taken. Notice that because the subject here was about eating, it was easy to arrange things in things you should eat, things you shouldn't eat, and then there's always a reason why and an example. So if you organize something this way, it'll be very easy to find the facts later. In terms of our subject, in part 3, getting meaning from context, we had our different kinds of places to eat. I'm sorry, these are not very clear pictures, but the restaurant, the cafeteria, fast food, and diner. Now, when we did our context, you were able to choose the correct one according to the conversation, because in the first one, you heard, would you like, here are the menus, these are, so clearly there was a waiter. If there's a waiter, that means it's a nice restaurant. In the next one, there's a question, shall we sit at the counter or the table? Let's have coffee. Counter or table, that means it's a diner, because at a diner you can sit at the counter or go to a table. Not at a regular restaurant could you do that. And then we had number 3, they're talking over there, that looks great, and pay at the cashier. If you're looking at the food, it must be a cafeteria. And finally, we hear about having burritos to go and Cokes and nachos. Well, that's fast food. So fast food place. I'm happy they put fast food place, not fast food restaurant. We talked about the menu here, the soup, the salad, the side orders, house specialty. And you notice that word I introduced to you up there. It's small, but please note it there, entree, another word for a main dish, an entree, French word, dessert. And our task in this unit was very delicious. We're going to make French toast. So first we had to get the ingredients. Then you had to follow the directions to make it. You remember that. Well, that takes us halfway through the book. So I guess that's where I'm going to stop now, so that the next lecture I can go on and talk to you about the final exam. Thank you.